I thought I would start this morning by addressing something that's been close to my heart, especially recently, something near and dear to my family and myself, and that usually the thing that starts my conversations with people recently, and that is, of course, my beard. I want to give you the backstory on this to clear the air about what has been causing this growth of hair from my face. And in August, Wesley challenged me. He'd seen a picture of me at Clemson with the beard, and I hadn't grown one in a long time, and he challenged me. He said, "Dad, you look great. Everybody's starting to grow beards." The whole Duck Dynasty thing. I said, "I ain't going to do that." But the reason that I don't grow a beard, to be honest, you need to talk to your mom, because the whole bristly thing with kissing just doesn't work for her. And I think we caught Claire in a weak moment, because she said, "No, I think it would look great." The one caveat was that we needed to wait until things got cooler, because she was not so up on the whole beard and shorts thing on a guy. So I thought that was fair. And so I started into it, and it didn't take long before I realized that the beard I was growing was not going to match the model. Now you have to understand, I don't have a Pinterest, but if I did, because I'm a guy, guys don't have Pinterest. But if I did, I would have the perfect beard on Pinterest. And it's this guy. In 1967, the guitarist for the Beatles, George Harrison, had a moment in time caught on camera when he had the perfect beard. And I've been trying to do that. Every time I've grown a beard, I'm looking at this picture. Well, I looked in the mirror after about a week and I realized, that red and brown that used to come out of my chin was now a different color. And let's just admit it wasn't gray, it was white. And so I realized that I needed to change the model to another British guy, another suave British guy that I'm going for now. But Sean Connery is now the new perfect beard for me. And we moved up to North Carolina, and just to give you an introduction to the topic of the talk today, I took this picture. I saw this tree, and you may have seen it on Facebook, this beautiful yellow tree in the background there. And I said, okay, let me get a picture of the beard and the beautiful wife and the tree in the background. And I took it, and I realized this thing didn't need any touch-up. Now, if you're familiar with Instagram, which is the program that you post your photos to on the internet, it allows you to easily click a button and almost look like a professional photographer. It touches things up, makes things look warmer, airbrushes those little imperfections. Well, this didn't need anything. And when you do that, a lot of times on Instagram or Twitter, you add a tag, a hashtag called NOFILTER. And that means I didn't do anything to this picture, and it's still beautiful. And usually that's with sunsets and ocean scenes. You don't see it too much with morning face. So I had to look at the picture before I posted it. And what do you look at when you take a picture of yourself and your family and a beautiful background? What's the first thing you look at? Yourself. Why do we do that? But anyway, what do you notice when you look at yourself? All of your imperfections. So I immediately saw, of course, the gray beard and had to decide, is the public ready for me to look all of my 48 years? The lines next to the eyes, the gray in the hair is not quite combed correctly. Why do we do that? Why are we so afraid to show ourselves to other people, even to our friends that we're posting out on Facebook about? And I think that bleeds over into our relationships as well. We're afraid to take off the persona that we have, the mask that we have for people. And I think that's appropriate with the large group of people that we're acquaintances with. But sometimes we even do it with our close family and our friends. And so I challenge you just for a second, who are the people in your life that you really have no filter with, who you can really take off the mask and allow yourself to show your imperfections, to share your fears, your struggles, even your dreams with? Who are your no filter friends that you'd show your morning face to? And for me, I have to say, I remember back my friend from high school, David, who I can go back to 5 years after having not seen him, and we're still sharing, right back where we were, sharing those music loves, those embarrassments from high school. And of course with Claire, she knows at least as much about me as I do, probably more. So think about those people. And unfortunately, who do we leave off that list a lot of time? When we talk about persons, God is a person. And not a human, but he is a person that we often keep at arm's length. And I think that we need to think about the fact that God is close to us. We know that in our heads, but we struggle with actually letting ourselves out to him, letting those feelings, those doubts, sometimes that anger at him, we struggle at letting him see that. And I think David corrects that in Psalm 139. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you get nothing else from this talk today, this one thing that I hope you'll remember. Since God knows me completely and loves me anyway, no filter is necessary. All right, so let's dive into this a little bit. The first point, God knows me completely and loves me anyway. I think we can see this. It's pretty obvious right from the start in Psalm 139. O Lord, in the first verse, you've examined my heart and know everything about me. God knows more than just what's on the surface. He knows deep down what's going on inside of us. So why do we hide ourselves from him? And if we go all the way back, we have to realize that God knew us even before our parents knew we existed. In verse 15, you watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was being woven together in the dark of the womb. Now, I, as an adopted child, I was an accident. My parents were two college students who made a mistake. But it's been a real comfort to me to know that God was there even before they knew they'd made that mistake or had that accident. And he had a plan for my life, a good plan, a plan for me to be here right now. And he has a plan for your life as well. You may not feel like you're in the right place in your life right now. You may have struggles going on, but God has a plan for you that was started even before you were born. All right, there's a few more, and you can see it all through the psalm, but I picked out a few more places in 139 here where he just lays out what God knows about us. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and follow me. He's out there in front of us. He knows where we're headed, and he's preparing that place for us. He's behind us in that mess that we left behind, and with forgiveness and grace. And he's going to make good out of those things if we allow him to. But sometimes those knowing that God knows everything about me, that can be scary. You know, if he knows everything about me, he knows point 1, 2, and 3 that I don't want anybody, even God, knowing about. And I'm glad that David points out the other side of God's knowing about us, that he loves us as well. And he says this in several places in the psalm. Verse 5, you place your hand of blessing on my head. Verse 10, your hand will guide me, and your strength will support me. And then verse 17, how precious are your thoughts about me, God, especially that one. I mean, those three verses together make me think about the way that I feel about my kids when they come to me in having screwed up. I can remember a specific point where Wesley came in after a long struggle with a sin he'd been battling. He had talked to his sister about it, he had talked to a mentor about it, but he hadn't talked to Claire or me about it, and he had finally released that to God, and the Spirit had taken that out of his life. And this high school kid with the tough demeanor comes in and he breaks down. And I can't just bash him over the head for that. Yes, he'd sinned. But at that moment, all I could feel was love, precious thoughts about him, and thankfulness that God had worked this out of his life. So that's how God thinks about you. I want you to know that. When you've sinned and you go to him in repentance and you release that to him, there is precious thoughts, there is holding you, and there's forgiveness. All right, the second point of this is what we can take out of this, of him knowing us. And the first application is I can be totally honest with him. Now, when we read Psalm 139, we very rarely read a little section near the end where David launches into his feelings about God's enemies. And I just wanted to go through this with you. very rarely read when Psalm 139 is read during a service. O God, if you only you would destroy the wicked. Yes, I hate them with total hatred, for your enemies are my enemies. And it's actually a longer piece than that. And I always struggled with, why is this section in the psalm? And there may have been a motive for David to have put it there, but one thing I think that he was able to do was, having gone through that first section of the psalm and opened himself up to God, knowing everything about him, he said, I can confess anything here. I can say whatever I'm feeling, and God will still love me. He probably knew from his experience with King Saul that it was not God's heart to destroy the wicked, but to bring the wicked to God. But at this point, David felt comfortable expressing his complete hatred for his enemies and knowing that God would still love him despite whatever was wrong with saying that. And I think that that's so important in how we pray. Are you really willing to express your full emotions to God, or are you hiding behind formal language? All right. Okay, and the other point that we can bring out of God knowing us and loving us is that I can allow him to change me. And these last two verses in Psalm 139 have been special to me in my prayer times, and maybe to you as well. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life. God knows the path that is best for us, and better than we do. And if we can just take off that shell that says, I know where I'm going, God, just bless wherever I decide to go, and say, no, God, you know where I should be going. I'm opening myself to you. I know that you love me, so whatever you're going to tell me, even if it hurts, it's better for me. So releasing that, knowing that that love and that hurt will work together for my good along the path of everlasting life, can be a life changer for us. All right. So coming back to our point, since God knows me completely and loves me anyway, no filter is necessary. This is in our prayer life, and hopefully this will be with the people that we know the closest as well, as we share our relationship with God, with each other. All right, your challenge. Go home this afternoon or this evening, and I challenge you to do three things. First, to marvel, just to bask in God knowing and loving you. If you have never opened yourself to that, and kind of think of him as the judging God, the zapping God that's trying to catch you in every little small thing that you've done wrong, realize that yes, he does know those small things, but he loves you anyway. The second thing, release those feelings. Release the raw thoughts and anxieties that you have in your life. If you haven't done that with God recently, I challenge you to do that. Just let it out to him. And then finally, surrender to his correction. Correction's a tough word to talk about with God, but when we know it's coming from someone who loves us and knows the best for us, we can do that and know it truly is the best, and it comes from a heart that wants the best for us.